In Ecuador, after 14 days of national strike, protests against Guillermo Lazo's government continue. In Germany, the G7 announced an investment of $600 billion with the argument of strengthening global economy. Also, Iran and Iraq agreed to strengthen economic and trade ties during the visit of Tehran of the Iraqi Prime Minister. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, in Disorder News. In Ecuador, popular protests continue after 15 days of national strike, while Parliament is expected to resume the discussion on the eventual impeachment of President Guillermo Lazo. This Sunday, the strike developed peacefully. Indigenous groups and cultural activists gather at the Central University of Quito, which serves as a shelter for those who remain mobilized. On Sunday, these groups are carrying out a minga at the university premises. From their work will continue with the Popular Assembly, following the leader of the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador, Leonidas Issa's call to rest and regain strength after reaffirming the continuity of the strike. On early Sunday, Human Rights Organizations Alliance reported that 5 people were killed in the context of demonstrations against President Guillermo Lazo's government. The Activist Association also pointed out that some 166 demonstrators have been injured and 64 different kinds of human rights violations have been reported. The Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador and Amazon reported that their records show that 7 people have been killed during the demonstrations by police and the military. Meanwhile, the last official statement issued by the National Police on Saturday night only reported the number of arrests, estimating them at 138.
Well, the Central University opened its doors as a humanitarian shelter. We have had a difficult week, where students and professors have gathered as volunteers to support and help this difficult process. We have 4 health tents, as you can see, where several wounded have been treated, especially at night. And also the university has set up a shelter where they keep medicines, food. The people of Quito, especially, have been very supportive with the indigenous brothers and sisters.
And the Pope Francis expressed concern on Sunday over the recent events in Ecuador and the ongoing uninterrupted 14 days long of protests. During his Sunday Mass, the Pontiff expressed his concern about the violent events in the Central American country and the protests taking place due to the shortage of food and fuel. Pope Francis expressed his hopes for social peace, especially for the most vulnerable and the poor, respecting the rights of all, as well as the country's institutions. During his speech, the Pope also lamented the 5 months of conflict in Ukraine, where civilians are suffering the most. In Peru, health authorities reinstated the epidemiological alert measure in response to the surge of coronavirus, registering more than 10,000 infections last week. According to the health entity, this new wave of infections triggered by the Omicron variant has led to a steady increase in confirmed COVID-19 cases, from 1,813 reported in April to 11,177 recorded at the beginning of June, mainly in the capital city of Lima. In the last report, 5,139 patients in serious conditions were registered in intensive care units with ventilators. Authorities also reported 774 infections and 5 fatalities in a single day. In view of this situation, health authorities reminded the public of the need to maintain the health and hygiene measures, such as the use of masks in closed spaces and hand washing, social distancing, and insisted on attending vaccination centers to complete the vaccination cycle. And China is set to replace the United States as the main destination for Indian exports, according to a report by the Indian Community of Nations based in Peru. According to the document presenting the regional group's foreign trade statistics, China was the main export destination with 19.3%, followed by the US with 18.5% and the European Union with 11.8%. The main products imported by the Indian Community of Nations were diesel fuel, mobile telephones, light oils, aviation fuels, and hard yellow corn. This takes place in the context of the strengthening of China's relations with Latin American countries in different areas, particularly in the economic and military fields, in the midst of aggressive policies of the U.S. against several nations in the region. Mexico's president announced that the military archives of the 27th Battalion of Nihuala, linked to the disappearance of the 43 Ayotzinapa students, will be opened. During a working tour in Guerrero, the president has assured that they are listening to the requests of the missing students' relatives. An investigation of the Dirty War Commission will open all military fields, including those of the implicated battalion. In the early morning of September 27, 2014, 8 military personnel from that battalion were taken to a hospital to receive psychological attention, and nothing about it has ever been clarified. Opening the files will bring light all over the case and justice to the missing students' families. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In Germany, the G7 announced an investment of $600 billion with the argument of strengthening global economy. U.S. President Joe Biden, during the G7 summit in Germany, announced that the multilateral organization aims to mobilize almost $600 billion by 2027 in a project to compete with the market with China's Belt and Road Initiative as part of the ongoing efforts to curb the development of the Asian nation. According to a G7 communique, the United States will contribute some $200 billion, through donations, federal financing, and private sector investments. The rest of the countries will collaborate with another $400 billion. The organization assures that the initiative seeks to close infrastructure gaps in developing countries, strengthen global economy and the supply chains. Parallel to the summit, demonstrations take place by various activist groups protesting against G7 policies and demanding greater social justice, equality, preservation of biodiversity, and the fight against global hunger.
We are here today to protest against the G7 because we are against a few imperialist powers getting together in an official meeting to talk about and decide on the important matters that affect 90% of humanity, with only the profits of the top 10% in mind.
We're here to demonstrate against G7, who are making policies for us that are just not for us, but they are doing it in our names anyway. And that's why it's important to speak out and oppose and not be passive.
In Spain, a citizens' demonstration demanded the resolution of NATO 3 days before the NATO summit in Madrid. Demonstrators were called by the Popular Assembly Against War, the State Platform for Peace, and the NATO No Assembly. Protesters took to the streets of the Spanish capital this Sunday, condemning the warmongering policies of the Atlantic Alliance, asking for an alternative to this military bloc. At the same time, participants of the mobilization expressed their disapproval by means of banners to the Intergovernmental Military Alliance. At the same time that they catalogued NATO as an unnecessary instrument that has become an obstacle for peace and has meant an unnecessary investment of resources, which according to demonstrators could be directed to hospitals and schools. And 23 more migrants died this Saturday after the assault at the border of the Spanish city of Melilla with Morocco. According to authorities of the Moroccan province of Nador, 18 other migrants and a member of the Moroccan security forces are still in the hospitals. The Moroccan Association of Human Rights reports the number of dead at 27, while the NGO Caminando Fronteras assures that there are 10 more. Last Friday, about 2,000 sub-Saharan migrants tried to cross the border fence. Only 133 made it, despite strong Moroccan force surveillance. On Sunday, the Norwegian police said they have still not been able to receive a statement from the suspect of the shootings near a gay bar in the capital Oslo that shocked the country and led to the cancellation of a pride march.
We did not get a statement from the perpetrator yesterday, and we have tried again today. He has still not given us a statement today. It's important for me to underline that in interrogation situations like this, we are concerned with respecting his right, following the rules and law when it comes to interrogation. And the way the situation is now, we have not been in a position to get a statement.
Now we move on to other topics. Russian Defense Minister Sergey Shoigu visited on Sunday for the first time the Russian forces stationed in Ukraine. According to the statement of the defense minister, it is an inspection of the troops taking part in the military operation in the east of Ukraine. Minister Shoigu received the reports of the commanders on the current status and the actions of the operation. The visit of the defense minister coincides with the advance of Russian and the pro-Russian troops in the Lugansk Oblast, where they gained full control of Severodonetsk and began the tactical deployment in Lysychansk, the last stronghold in the Oblast with the presence of the troops loyal to Kiev. In Ukraine, authorities of the self-proclaimed People's Republic of Lugansk reported the occupation of the Azovt chemical plant in the city of Severodonetsk. Withdrawal from Severodonetsk is a major setback for Ukraine since the loss of the southern part of Mariupol. Azot is a major industrial center, accounted for 22.18% of the total industrial output of the Oblast region, with 32 large industrial enterprises and 1,200 private enterprises. Is one of the largest chemical plants in Europe. The latest Russian advances seem to bring the Kremlin closer to total control of Lugansk, one of the objectives of the operation declared by Moscow. In Russia, the Ministry of Defense reported the neutralization of about 80 Polish mercenaries and enemy weapon systems operating in the Donbass. Defense Ministry spokesperson Lieutenant General Igor Konashenkov, during his daily briefing, reported that the Russian Air Force attacked a zinc factory in the Donbass. The spokesperson also said that about 20 armored vehicles and 8 Grad multiple rocket launchers were destroyed in the town of Konstantinova. Konashenkov also said that other strikes were carried out in other areas of the region, immobilizing artillery pieces, drones, and military personnel. The Russian defense spokesperson also noted that the nation's forces intercepted a Toksha-U ballistic missile in the air near the town of Molodzovye in southern Ukraine. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Iran and Iraq agreed to strengthen economic and trade ties during the visit to Tehran of the Iraqi Prime Minister. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi met on Sunday with the acting Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi. Following their meeting, Raisi and al-Kadhimi addressed a joint press conference on mutual interest and assured they are discussing ways to boost bilateral economic and commercial ties. Within this framework, the Persian president informed about the monetary and banking relations for the mutual cooperation. Mustafa's trip to Tehran comes amid attempts of revived diplomatic relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran, severed since 2016.
We agreed to cooperate in order to ease tensions in our region. We discussed the crucial issues that affect the people of this region and agreed to support the truce in Yemen. We emphasized the importance of relations between countries of the region. Hence, we welcome dialogue between countries of the region in order to solve its issues. We also stress that the foreign presence and interference in our region won't solve the problems, but rather create new ones. Therefore, we insist that problems can only be solved through dialogue.
The government of Iran confirmed its position on the nuclear issues and claimed that it will continue its actions until the West changes its illegal approach to the Vienna dialogues. In a meeting held in Tehran with the head of the European diplomacy, Joseph Borrell, the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council of Iran, Ali Shahmani, assured that Tehran's decision was taken based on the fact that such measures are part of the legal and rational reaction to the unilateralism of the United States and the lack of action adopted by Europe. The Persian official recalled that participants in the Vienna talks failed to reach a final agreement on the reactivation of the Joint Comprehensive Action Plan due to the contradictory behavior of the United States and its adherence to the threats and sanctions. Meanwhile, the Islamic Republic has fulfilled all its commitments under the 2015 pact. And a storm hit Latakia, a coastal town in Syria, in the early hours of Saturday morning, injuring several people. Ziham Makul, the director of the provincial hospital, said the injured and bruised people were treated. According to governorate officials, the storm's winds reached about 135 kilometers per hour, causing extensive damage to some public and private properties. The storm damaged as well some power and telephone towers, light poles, trees, and several vehicles. India sent a new shipment of 3,000 metric tons of wheat as part of the humanitarian aid for the people of Afghanistan affected by the earthquake that killed over 1,000 people. According to Foreign Ministry spokesperson Aridan Bakshi, his country remains steadfast in his commitment to provide aid to Afghan people. This new shipment is in addition to the nearly 33,500 metric tons of wheat sent to the Central Asian country since the 5.9 magnitude earthquake that struck the country earlier on Wednesday morning, injuring 2,000 people and destroying 10,000 homes. Afghanistan is in dire economic, social and health conditions following the 20-year invasion by the United States government under the pretext of fighting terrorism. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Afghanistan, the reduction of sanctions and the unfreezing of the assets of the country's central bank were requested. According to this entity, the priority should be to guarantee the funds to protect the right to life of the citizens. One of the provinces most affected by the earthquake was Paktika, where the population is facing a severe shortage of food, shelter and drinking water, mainly due to the poor infrastructure, diplomatic and financial isolation to which the government of Afghanistan is subjected by the United States and its allies in the West. And at least 20 young people between 18 and 20 years old were found dead in a nightclub in the city of East London in the southeast coast of South Africa. According to the head of the Eastern Cape Provincial Police, Thembinowski Kinana, the circumstances surrounding the incident are still unknown, and investigations are being carried out in conjunction with emergency services. According to the official Facebook page of the venue, in Jobeni Tavern, the victims had booked on Saturday night to celebrate the birthday of the two people. Subsequently, photographs of the bodies with no signs of life and no wounds were spread on social media from the account of a news user who was not yet been verified. In Turkey, at least 2 people were killed and 16 others were injured in a traffic accident in the north of the country. Local media reported that the accident took place in the Turkish city of Kastamonu, where a car traveling from the city of Istanbul to Samsun crashed head-on to a passenger bus traveling in the opposite lane. Reports indicate that the car driver and his companion died at the scene, while at least 16 passengers traveling in the bus were injured and are currently receiving treatment in hospital centers. TeleSUR expands its signal with new satellite parameters. Since more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are being heard in other farther away nations. These parameters are in place since June 1st in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in English and Spanish, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. So we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.